are January 6 rioters who had been arrested and charged, are they actually facing justice? Mind you, only just over 1,000 people have actually been charged in the Jan 6 insurrection, riot, whatever you want to call it. How many thousands were there? Like, y'all seen the numbers. You've seen the photos, I mean. But let's look at it, because the Intercept did a deep dive. And the title of it is "Not Political Prisoners, Not Hostages." In fact, federal judges have shown leniency in nearly all Jan 6 cases. They have a very handy graphic, but they basically show that, and we'll talk about, depending on which judges were appointed, how lenient they were. And it's not judges you would assume would be more lenient, but in 82% of the 719 Jan 6 related convictions, again, only 719 convicted. Again, remember I said, I think it's something, we can double check this, a bit over 1,000, maybe 1,400 charges, 719 convictions. In 82% of those, federal judges have issued lighter sentences than prosecutors originally sought. Defendants in 429 out of the 719 cases have been sentenced to standard prison terms. And 173 cases, Donald Trump appointees gave lighter sentences than government requested in 156 or 90%. Okay, so Donald Trump appointees as justices, we assume, would obviously be a lot softer on some of these defendants. But let's look at the actual judges. They did this sort of matchup in terms of who's handing down these lighter sentences. Democratic appointees handled more cases than Republicans, and judges chosen by Barack Obama heard nearly half the cases. Thanks, Obama. No, literally, thank you, Obama. And so you see that Obama appointed justices handed 333, Trump appointed justices 173, but actually Biden and Bush appointees were the most lenient in what they handed down in terms of the sentences. Judges appointed by President Joe Biden and former President George W. Bush gave lesser sentences than prosecutors sought in 92% of the cases. So a lot of these cases, there was no prison time actually handed down. There was community service or whatnot. I mean, can they clean up some broken glass around the Capitol? Do they have to repaint the Capitol? Are they allowed to even get within, a spit distance of the Capitol? Hopefully not. But all to say, the narrative that they are being treated better than average prisoners is utter BS. And in fact, again, in all of these instances, and surprisingly, Biden judges are being a lot more white glove with this whole thing, which kind of for me stems from what Merrick Garland initially, when he came into office, was also talking about, which is, gee, I don't want to go too hard on these anti-democratic rioters because maybe they'll think I'm being anti-democratic. I mean, it's just wild. But Ray, I mean, the number of actual convictions is so minimal. And we cannot lose sight of the fact that were these folks anyone else at the behest of any other political cause, how many would not only be charged and convicted, but dead?
Right, exactly. And it shouldn't really come as a surprise to anybody, the leniency in the sentencing in these cases. When we look at the demographics of who's being charged in these cases, and I don't just mean their race, but I mean their class as well, because there was a narrative initially pushed in an attempt to rewrite the history of January 6th about who was there that day. And that was that this was the people coming together in an uprising, right? This was a revolution, is even the language that's used by some of the people who were at January 6th. And they'll try to complain that people on the left, people who are socialists like myself, support the idea of a working class uprising, but that's not what this was. This was upper middle class. These were small business owners, these were doctors, these were lawyers, businessmen. Most of them represent that class group.
Yes.
And so the judges feel a lot more sympathy towards them than they do a poor black person who is going to be put away behind bars for a long time for a drug crime or something. These people get sympathy from judges. because they look like them and because they come from the same sort of financial background as them. And not to mention the fact that they're able to afford private defense attorneys. They don't have to go with the public defenders in most of these cases, so they get better representation. Not to say that public defenders aren't excellent attorneys, they are. They're just overworked and underpaid and don't have the resources to devote to all of their cases that a private defense attorney does have. So
yes,
that's why we're seeing these, the leniency in these sentencing and we'll see them make their pleas for leniency in public too. I'm thinking of this one woman who has done many TV interviews in front of all of her children, talking about how she has to go to jail for a certain amount of months. And she always sort of buries the lead that she broke a window and encouraged people to enter through the window before she also breached the Capitol through that window. So they're able to use that to say, well, look at my upper middle class white family. I'm a mother. I'm a small business owner. I have people that I'm going to be leaving behind if you put me in jail. And judges take pity on that, and they shouldn't. And juries take pity on that, and it's unfair that these people get that sympathy. Well, poorer or people of color in courts don't receive that same leniency.
100%. Also, let us remember the Cop City protesters in Atlanta who are currently facing RICO charges for doing things like handing out flyers.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.